Welcome to Chapter 13 of Manku, which is to be production costs, which starts the market structure unit, which is probably 40 to 50% of the AP exam. So, what are costs? Well, we'll start out with total revenue. Total revenue, price times quantity, okay? When you're looking at profits, profits are total revenue minus cost. And in any firm, the number one job is to maximize profits. So there's the total revenue, total cost, the market value of the inputs a firm uses in production. Okay. So a firm has two types of costs. It has explicit costs. Explicit costs are any inputs that cost cash. So like labor, you pay for money. Rent, you pay for money. And then they have what they call implicit costs. And implicit costs are more like opportunity costs. So for an example, instead of being a teacher, I could be a doctor. So if I was making $200,000 a year as a doctor, and I'm making $60,000 a year as a teacher, that is my implicit cost. Economists use implicit costs and explicit costs, okay? Now, again, there's not an outlay, it's not costing me $140,000 to be a teacher. I'm not paying anyone that, but it's an opportunity cost. The second type of implicit cost would be like if I'm opening a business. If you're opening a business and you're taking $100,000 to open your business, there is this implicit cost of the interest you could have been earning if you just kept the money in the bank. Okay, so both of those are examples of implicit cost. Now, economic profit is total revenue minus explicit and implicit cost. So when you're thinking of economic profit, which we will be doing the rest of the year unless otherwise told, you're thinking of total revenue minus the explicit and the implicit cost. Accountants, however, only think of cash cost, explicit cost. So there is total revenue minus explicit cost. Now, sometimes they'll ask you, why does businesses when you're looking at economic profit, why do businesses stay in business and they have zero economic profit? And the reason is they're still making accounting profit. Okay? And there's just in the graph, accounting profit is revenue minus explicit cost, and economists, economic profit, implicit cost, and explicit cost. Okay? All right, the marginal, and when you think marginal, you think of additional. So the marginal product is the additional product of any input in the production process, is the increase in output that arises from an additional unit of that input. So as you add a worker, the marginal product is how much the worker produces, how many units the worker produces. Okay? And if you remember in the in the corn example, the marginal product was, as we put up another person at the board, how many corns could they increase? Now, even though marginal product is sometimes decreasing, remember total product is increasing. And that leads us to the diminishing marginal product, which is as you add workers, eventually, if there's fixed resources, marginal product will decline. And you remember that in the corn example, as people got more and more crowded at the board and less room, marginal product went down. Okay? Now there are two types of costs we'll deal with. One is fixed and one is variable. Fixed costs are costs that no matter how much you produce, stay the same. So rent is a fixed cost. No matter how many hamburgers McDonald's sell, the rent is the same. Variable costs are costs that vary depending depending on how many units you make. So food cost is a variable cost, because it depends on how many hamburgers for the cost of the food. Hourly labor could be a variable cost, because you'll have more or less workers depending on how much you're selling. Alright. And total costs are fixed costs plus variable costs. Okay? And when you take average cost can be determined by dividing the firm's cost by the quantity of output it produces. So the average cost is the cost of each typical unit of the product. So you have average fixed cost, which would be the fixed cost divided by the number of units. Now, the average fixed cost is always going down, because since fixed costs are steady and don't change as you add units, the average fixed cost, so you know, 100 divided by 1 unit would be 100, divided by 2 is 50, divided by 3 is 33, by 4 is 25, so the average fixed cost is always going down. Average variable cost depends on the units, and then you have the average total cost. Okay? And there are just your formulas to make it. Average fixed cost is fixed cost over quantity, average variable cost is variable cost over quantity, and total cost over quantity. Alright, the marginal, again, marginal is additional, so it's the additional cost, okay, that arises from an extra unit. So how much does it cost to produce the 5th unit from the 4th unit? In marginal cost formula is change in total cost over change in quantity. And that's one I would remember, because there's usually a multiple choice question like that. Change in total cost over change in quantity. Okay, what do the curves look like? Okay, why is the marginal cost first downward sloping? Because at first, marginal productivity increases due to specialization. We saw that with the corn. I added a worker or two and marginal productivity. So as workers are more productive, the additional cost goes down. But then, because of the law of diminishing marginal returns, workers become less product, marginal cost starts sloping up. Okay? You then have your average total cost line there, and your average variable cost. Now, the space between the average total cost and the average variable cost is average fixed cost. Notice that as average fixed cost gets less and less as you add units, this gets closer and closer. Now, one thing that students sometimes have a problem with is the relationship between marginal cost and average total cost. So, if the marginal cost, if the additional unit is lower than the average total cost, it's going to pull it down. And just think of it like your GPA. If your GPA is 3.0 and the next semester you get a 2.7, that's going to pull your GPA down. That's like your marginal cost being low. 2.8, still going to pull it down. 2.9, still. Now here, it's 3.0, so it stays the same. And now we get 3.1 and the average total cost curve starts shifting up, okay? So, minimum average total cost where MC intersects ATC. Anything below the ATC will pull the ATC down. Anytime marginal cost is above, it will pull the ATC above. Remember earlier I said average fixed cost would always be going down, and there is your average fixed cost line. Okay? And that should be it for this unit. Thank you.